Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. And thanks to all of you for once again making Justice #1 last weekend and for having made Liars, Leakers, and Liberals #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list. We've got a great show on deck for you tonight. Ann Coulter, Dan Bongino, Michelle Malkin, and Steve Doocy, who I never thought came out at night, to name just a few of the great guests joining me live tonight. Plus, you won't want to miss my special trip to the Museum of the Bible, exploring the world of fashion, art, and food in the Bible. But first, my open. This week, Hillary Clinton said that Europe should no longer offer refuge and support to migrants. Say what? No more refuge and support for migrants? The woman's either had a lobotomy or she's been out in the woods too long. Her latest flip-flop from the left's generic open border, globalist, sanctuary, let them all in policy is a stunning reversal. She even breaks with her pal Barack Obama, who said this about the caravan coming to the United States.
Now in 2018, they're telling you the existential threat to America is a bunch of poor refugees 1,000 miles away.
Now, Barack, I don't have time to talk you through this, but you're wrong. Thousands of miles away? They're here. In a matter of weeks from Central America, they're here. It's a miracle. Or could it be that some entities planned long in advance to arrange to get them to our border? But I digress. So back to Hillary. Hillary, why your change? Might it be that you've had a revelation of any one of a number of things, like looking at the United States? You now recognize that the caravan indeed might be a Trojan horse of criminals, drug smugglers, human traffickers, coyotes, or worse, that already there are 500 criminals identified in the caravan. Or that you're fed up with those who arrogantly demand, with absolutely no basis, that they're entitled to come here and be treated as Americans. Or might you have boned up on elementary economics, as in the impact of the uninvited on the U.S. economy, the financial burden they put on our schools, hospitals, health care, housing, and entitlements like disability and Medicaid, not to mention criminal and civil lawyers and a whole host of courts to accommodate them? Or maybe you've heard the first generation of illegals are generally a complete drain on the hard-earned dollars of tax-paying Americans. It certainly cannot be that you've become a recent disciple of law and order, given you've skirted so many laws yourself, as well as your clear disdain for truth and justice. Maybe you've heard from legal immigrants who say if you want to come here, do it legally like we did and get in line. Or maybe you've heard from the families who've lost loved ones after the helter-skelter admission of even openly tatted up MS-13 members from the last caravan who proudly proclaimed their membership from when they arrived and then wreaked havoc on the lives of innocent Americans they murdered. Might you have become a nationalist, resenting the images of foreigners carrying flags of their countries while demanding entry to ours, like the boisterous demonstrations on the U.S.-Mexico border where demonstrators defied our laws, screaming for Trump to let them in? No, folks, it's for none of those aforesaid reasons. Hillary says Europe should no longer offer refuge and support to migrants because it opens the door to political turmoil. She says it's the flame that caused populists, those on the right like Trump and his supporters, as well as the Brits who pushed for Brexit, to rise up. So her reason is purely a political one. Immigrants be damned. Forget them. We on the left are losing on this issue. Ergo, throw the immigrants under the proverbial bus. Hillary then opens up her soul with her clinical assessment of those on the right who oppose the invasion, the horde of those who choose to forcibly enter, to not be vetted, who offer nothing in terms of what they give to any country, but instead demand immediate entry, for example, here in our homeland. She says, right-wing populists in the West, that's you and me, met a psychological as much as political yearning to be told what to do, where to go, how to live, and have their press basically stifled and so be given one version of reality. Translation, we're all still stupid and deplorable. So, folks, there has been no revelation. She hasn't seen the light. It's pure political calculus. And more than a flip-flop, it's the classic Clinton two-step. She simply wants to boost her base. The woman is simply desperate. There's even talk of a 2020 run. Hillary, the only place you need to run is back into the woods. And that's my open. If you love my opening statements, you'll love my new book, New York Times bestseller, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, The Case Against the Anti-Trump Conspiracy. Now, developing tonight, President Trump tweeting about the migrant crisis at the border a short time ago, saying, quote, migrants at the southern border will not be allowed into the United States until their claims are individually approved in court. We only will allow those who come into our country legally. Other than that, our very strong policy is catch and detain. No releasing into the U.S. All will stay in Mexico, and if for any reason it becomes necessary, we will close our southern border. There is no way that the United States will, after decades of abuse, put up with this costly and dangerous situation anymore. Meanwhile, curiously, Mexico is pushing back on reports of an asylum deal, the country's incoming government saying there's no real agreement in place. Joining me now with reaction to my opening statement and all of the developing news tonight, conservative commentary and author of the new book, Resistance is Futile, How the Trump-Hating Left Lost Its Collective Mind, Ann Coulter. Good to see you again, Ann.
Good to see you, Jeanine.
All right, so talk to me about what is going on at the border. And now the president seems to suggest, aside from whether or not there's a deal with Mexico, he's saying they ain't coming in. There's no catch and release. It's catch and detain when we get them. Is that really going to happen, Ann?
I don't know. He says a lot of great things, and he better start following through because, I mean, one of the things you were saying about Hillary, and I think all of us have been sort of sitting back hoping she would run again. But, I mean, consider that in Texas alone, look at how close those last two elections were in Florida and Texas. If either of those ever flip, no Republican ever gets elected president again. 3 out of 4 Hispanics in Texas are under the age of 18. So each day Trump doesn't fulfill his immigration promises, his voters are dying off, and Democratic voters, Hillary's voters, are registering to vote. So I hope he keeps this promise. I mean, this is why we wanted a wall, so that we wouldn't have to ask the country on the other side of the wall.
You know, what he got in the last omnibus bill was $1.6 billion, and in the fine print, Paul Ryan, thank goodness he's leaving, and Mitch McConnell, you know, say he can only use $1.6 billion for the actual wall itself. It's all this other nonsense with the fencing that they climb over all the time. So Donald Trump has done everything he can to do the wall. I mean, he can't build it himself.
I think he can, and I think the most important point is No, I mean, he can use the funding from Department of Homeland Security and Department of Defense. He's commander-in-chief. And by the way, just separate point, but what happened to ending the war in Afghanistan? We have troops protecting borders all over the world, not our own border. But the most important point is...
But he's moving the military to the border. I mean, he can't do anything else. He has indicated he's going to close the whole southern border. No president. I mean, they've sent the military to the border. Bush did and Obama did. But I've never seen anything as focused as we are right now. Who do you think's sending these people?
Well, his rhetoric is great. There are troops, I think 5,000 on the border, but if you are an aficionado of the Andy Griffith show, Barney Fife could have a gun but only one bullet, and that bullet he had to keep in his pocket because he wasn't a very good shot. That's more bullets than our troops on the border have.
Well, they're not
but the
allowed
point
to
I
use
would
it
make
because
to Trump is...
You know what the legal requirement is, posse comitatus. I mean, he is doing everything he can to have them back it up. What?
Number one, you can't shoot Americans. You can shoot invaders. Number two, even if that were true, okay, go 1 yard into Mexico. What's happening on our border is certainly a bigger crisis for Americans than Grenada was.
We can't invade Mexico to stop them from coming in here. I mean, we're doing the same thing unless Mexico gives us that authority. If you recall, even in Benghazi, they said, well, we didn't get permission from Libya to go in and protect our men. We certainly can't cross the border to shoot them up over there. I mean, if that's what you're talking about, to send the military there.
Reagan invaded Grenada, and Grenada was far less of a threat to Americans than what's happening on our border. And I'm saying, I don't think the Posse Comitatus Act, I mean, Nazis have been arrested by our troops when they landed in the Hamptons, no less.
Right,
with guns. Our troops had guns. He's the commander-in-chief. This is what he should be doing.
And he's got to follow the law because there are federal judges all over this country who will stop him in his tracks. Final word, Ann, real fast.
I don't think so. Most of the property in Texas.
All right.
So they'll bring a lawsuit, but they'll lose.
Yeah, ultimately.
And that's not a reason not to try it.
Well, you know what? And the Ninth Circuit is...
There's no tomorrow on this.
Yep, well, let's hope not.
This omnibus bill
Ann
is
Coulter?
the last chance.
All right, Ann Coulter. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. And here with more reaction to the developing news from the southern border tonight and the latest on the caravan, NRA TV host and author of Spygate, the attempted sabotage of Donald Trump. Dan Bongino joins me now. All right, Dan, you heard Ann and I going at it. She thinks the president should do more. I've never seen any president fight as much as this president has, but am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are. I think he's doing what he can do right now. He's kind of limited, as you stated, by, Posse Comitatus and others. But, Judge, the border's not a suggestion. And I think he's doing the best he can right now with Mexico to keep asylum seekers on Mexican soil. The problem we've had in the past is asylum seekers get to enter the United States. They get backlogged because we don't have enough immigration judges.
Right.
So they don't get a hearing for years. By the time their hearing comes around, they're already gone. And we don't see them ever again. So I think we have a big problem here in the immigration bureaucracy.
Well, one of the things is that, the caravan crisis, DHS has confirmed that already 500 criminals are traveling with the migrant caravan. And this whole idea of letting them in and then releasing them, hoping they'll come back, is absurd.
Yeah.
And that's not working.
Yeah.
That's why, when Ronald Reagan said in 1986, we're going to give them amnesty, and here we are, fast forward, facing another disaster. So the issue now is, what do we do to stop them?
Yeah, the Democrats basically hurt us back then, too, with Simpson-Mazzoli under Reagan, where we were supposed to trade amnesty for border security. They got the amnesty, the Democrats, we never got the border security. Listen, this is a silly argument. I'm tired of liberals arguing the converse on this, okay? Here's the deal. It's our country. It belongs to the citizens of the United States. We work here. We pay the taxes here. Our kids, our parents, our brothers and sisters have shed blood to save this country, including 2 members of my own family. It's our country. It does not belong to people on foreign soil, and you don't get to come here and make demands. Judge, we have a legal immigration process. My wife went through it. If you want to come here and enter our fabric in this country, fine. We'll welcome you with open arms. But you got to follow the law.
And we do. I must tell you, I used to swear them in. The newly naturalized citizens, it was the happiest day of their life.
And it's a beautiful thing.
It is. Okay.
Judge, it's a beautiful thing. I was there with my wife. I shed a tear watching her raise her right hand. It's a beautiful thing. But you got to respect the law. You don't make demands of us.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing. I mean, how does it make you feel when just the other day, I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was Thursday, somebody was standing on the border saying, Trump let us in, Trump let us in. And how did these guys make it so fast? All of these, there are thousands of them. I heard Barack Obama 2 weeks ago say they're thousands of miles away, and now they're at the border already. Who's bringing them here? Are they being busted?
Well, there must have been some logistics help, obviously, in the transportation to get all these people to the border so quickly. But this making of demands, let us in. We're under no obligation as a free and sovereign country to take demands from foreign citizens demanding of us to be let in violation of our own laws. Judge, I can't say this enough. The border is not a suggestion. We are a sovereign country. We are American citizens. We work hard to support this place. And as you said before, and you're right, we have let in millions of people into the United States. Don't give me this nonsense that it's about compassion. We're the most compassionate country on earth.
I don't ever want to hear that again.
We're just asking you to follow the law. I'm tired of it.
But let me ask you something. You know, in Tijuana, they're staying there, and the mayor of Tijuana is asking Mexico for help to take care of this caravan where they were in towns for 2 days, and they gave them a place to sleep and something to eat. But now the mayor of Tijuana is appealing to Mexico, saying, help us. We can't afford these people. And it's not clear whether or not Mexico's even going to help this town. It may go under because of these people.
Yeah, and you can thank liberal activists who are incentivizing this type of behavior. Judge, there is no infrastructure in Tijuana to support an influx of thousands of people in a snap overnight who need food, who need medicine, who need hospitals. And liberal activists think this is compassion. Yeah. You know who's going to take advantage of this, Judge? People who are experienced in criminal trafficking across the border, who are going to try to get those people across the border.
Dan Bongino, thanks so much. And Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk still ahead. Plus, I'll take you to the Museum of the Bible as they celebrate their 1 millionth visitor on their 1-year anniversary. And more on the developing story we've been following as President Trump puts pressure on the asylum seekers trying to come in from Mexico. Michelle Malkin is next. What's her reaction to tonight's breaking news? Find out in a moment. Breaking tonight, President Trump says migrants at the southern border wall will not be allowed into the U.S. until their claims are individually approved in court. Joining me now with a reaction to that and much more, our friend CRTV host Michelle Malkin. All right, Michelle, right now there is a discussion that Mexico is agreeing to hold them until we can actually allow them in and hear their claim. What are you hearing about this?
Yes, tentatively, the agreement is called Remain in Mexico. And obviously, Mexican government officials don't want to publicize it too much diplomatically. Right. But on the other hand, of course, they're getting so much pushback from their own citizens. And it was remarkable to see over the last week the video of Mexican citizens telling these people to go home. Every sovereign nation has the right and prerogative to exercise their ability to make sure that they are able to tell who's able to come into their country and not. And the Mexican government officials have said that endless caravans are not in their interest, and they're not in the United States' interest either.
Two things come to mind when the president was, he seemed to be pretty firm when he said, if Mexico wants to send some cars here, they better work with me. I mean, that's the big stick. But I think also what you're saying is so important. I was just talking about the mayor in Tijuana. They can't handle it anymore. And it's only been a few days where this influx is there and taking over the towns. But I want to ask you about a question that I asked in one of the previous blocks. Who do you think is responsible for the caravan that was just thousands of miles away and miraculously just got to the border?
Yeah, as you said, Judge, these things don't just happen by accident. Somebody is helping facilitate it. And over the past year, I have reported on a group called Pueblo Sin Fronteras, which organized the caravan that got here all the way up to the U.S. border from Central America during Holy Week, during Easter. This is an annual event, and it is something that is globally coordinated. And it's not just nonprofit organizations. There are many religious leftist organizations involved as well. And I have pointed out, and I am a Catholic, so it doesn't cheer me to have to say this, but the Vatican itself had spent $20,000 on one of these shelters to get people all the way to Ixtepec, Mexico, where people just hopped on freight trains and got into the country. Once they're in here, there's an entire sanctuary network of evangelical Christian and other religious groups, as well as those left-wing, big billion-dollar funded organizations, philanthropic organizations.
What do you say about those who say that it's even bigger than that? It's some of the countries. I've heard reports of Bolivia or Venezuela, or bigger than just a sanctuary kind of effort.
Yeah, I think that you have to look at it as a transnational phenomenon. And then, of course, we haven't even talked about the financial incentives to undermine our borders. And whether it is the national U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I'm not talking about the local chapters, but at the national level, and big business, and the corporate incentives to bring in low-wage workers here at the disadvantage of American workers.
All right, I want you to listen to this sound. Liberal Hollywood continuing their assault on the right and ICE agents. Take a look.
We received a call from a neighbor here about a taco truck parked in a residential area. Noticed the taillights cracked, ran the plates. Seems the truck belongs to a Carlos and Maria Gonzalez. Undocumented immigrants, outstanding removal order.
You guys cannot barge in here like this. I know you're used to dealing with people who are scared and vulnerable, but if you don't get out of this truck, I will spatchcock you.
What did they do except give up everything so I could grow up in a country that we thought was the most compassionate place in the world?
Sorry, kid. We're just following government orders.
Michelle, 15 seconds.
This is an incitement to violence ultimately, and it's the Abolish ICE movement that's been adopted by academia, the Democrats, and now Hollywood. Thousands and thousands of agents of all races and backgrounds serve our country honorably to enforce our immigration laws. And if these people don't want those laws, then put it up before Congress and vote on it. Don't create anarchy and chaos in our country.
Malkin, thanks so much, Michelle. And Steve Ducey is here live with some of his favorite dishes from his new cookbook. But first, Charlie.
They've been in a decade. 2 people have been killed since protests began 1 week ago. I'm Matt Finn. Now back to Justice with Judge Jeanine.
A lot of developing news, so let's get right to it with my political panel tonight. Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, syndicated radio show host Chris Hahn join me live. All right, guys, the first thing I want to talk about is the Mexico deal. And the president is saying no more catch and release. They're going to remain in Mexico and until their claims are individually approved in court, a basic catch and detain. Now, Charlie, how is he going to do that? I mean, Mexico reports are they've agreed, but the reports are also that they don't want to admit it because it's going to make their people upset. Because if you think about it, this caravan is wreaking havoc as it goes through Mexico.
That's right. And if true, this is a very, very big win because this should not be solely the responsibility of the United States. I mean, this caravan has traveled hundreds of miles through Mexico. At some point, our ally in Mexico is going to have to step up and be a partner in helping process these thousands of applicants for asylum. And look, we are a very generous nation. In fact, we're the most generous nation ever to exist. But unfortunately, because of certain special interests, the asylum process is being taken advantage of. And there probably are some people within this caravan that truly do need the help of asylum. system.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's being used for political motivations and actually cheapens the individuals that need political asylum when it happens in these sort of caravans of individuals.
Chris, what about the fact that asylum seekers from all over the world come here legally, but for some reason Central Americans think they can just walk in and demand their constitutional rights once they're on American land?
Well, I don't know that it's so much a demand as an ask. Look, they're on the other side of the border looking up at the Border Patrol
clearly is a
asking to be let in.
They're not asking to be let in. They are secretly being let in, demanding to be let in, as opposed to going to a port of entry and asking to be let in.
Well, you know, the president could limit the size of the people walking here or coming here through other means if he just reinstates the policy he got rid of at the beginning of the administration that Obama had in place, where people could apply for asylum in their home country. Now, the president eliminated that policy. I think he should consider bringing it back now.
What do you mean he eliminated it? When did he eliminate that, Chris?
On his one of the first actions he took was to get rid of a lot of President Obama's executive orders. This was a good executive order. The president should issue the same executive order allowing people to seek asylum in their home countries. Therefore, it will make these caravans smaller and less burdensome on our allies in Mexico.
Okay, so you think someone
region.
marching in a caravan is going to say, look, it's because of the executive order, either by Obama or President Trump. It doesn't really matter. There is a law.
Well,
you
had
go
they
through
sought
it like
asylum,
everybody
had they
else,
sought
but if
asylum
I'm
in their
from Central
home,
America, I'm showing up. Go ahead, Charlie.
Had they sought asylum in their home country, they wouldn't need to walk here to wait for it.
Walk here? You
Look,
think they
the
walked
big problem is that we have
like Obama said, and they got here in a couple of weeks? You think they're just walking? Go ahead, Charlie.
Well, right. If Chris's logic, stood any merit of, cross-examination, then that would have completely ended all sort of asylum-seeking illegal immigration under the Obama era, which we know not to be the case, that there was an influx of illegal immigration during the 8 years of Obama. And so, look, here's the big problem, is that we have a porous border. In fact, our border is a complete joke. The president is correct where he says a nation without borders is not a nation at all. And the reason you've seen the influx of illegal immigration is because you start to hear politicians speak about amnesty. And they think it's their big chance right now to get a shot at being a United States citizen. And part of it is like, you can't really blame them, but it's our fault that we haven't secured our borders and we have too loose immigration laws. And kudos to this president for the courage of his convictions.
There's nothing to fear here, Charlie. We've seen these people come here before.
Criminals already identified.
And let's also be clear that immigration, including undocumented immigration, is up under Trump, and part of it is because he got rid of the asylum rule that Obama put in place. So this is something he needs to examine, and it does merit cross-examination, Charlie. But it is what it is.
All right, look, let's go to Roberts. Go ahead, Chris. No, I'm sorry, Charlie. Go ahead.
The one thing I want to say, Chris, which is really important, is do not blur immigration with border jumping. Immigrants are people that apply, they wait in line, they obey the law, and they come here the right way.
This is border jumping. Charlie, you don't even know the difference. You should go back to school. You don't even know the difference. Okay.
Going over a fence illegally is not immigration.
Yeah. That's not what's happening with this caravan. They're going to a port of entry and seeking asylum. So you're blurring
I'm not even going to let you finish.
That is not correct.
To another topic. Take a look at this tweet by your old boss, Senator Chuck Schumer, Chris. I don't agree very often with Chief Justice Roberts, especially his partisan decisions, which seem highly political on Citizens United. But I'm thankful today that he almost alone among Republicans stood up to President Trump and for an independent judiciary. Republicans or Democrats?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Chris?
Well, what's wrong with that tweet, Judge? I mean, Judge? We don't always agree. Sometimes I agree with you, sometimes I don't. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. Justice Roberts is sometimes right, and he's sometimes wrong. He was right when he stood up to the president about an independent judiciary, and Senator Schumer was exactly right
Charlie,
in that tweet. There was nothing wrong with it at all.
Word.
Yeah, but look, the president was spot on. We do not have an independent judiciary in the Ninth Circuit. 79% of all cases that are appealed through the Ninth Circuit get overturned. That is a record in the country. It's unbelievable. And not to mention that there are judges, when they're appointed under Obama versus Trump, there's a big difference in constitutional interpretation. There's a textualist interpretation. There's a revisionist interpretation. And that's what President Trump is talking about.
Charlie Kirk, Chris Hahn, thanks so much for being with us tonight.